not merely make an announcement. He drew a line through the kingdom, felt the shock. With a face.
Beatrice's adult life has coincided with one of the most turbulent periods in recent royal history, much of it driven by her father's controversies rather than her own conduct. Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, his subsequent loss of royal patronages and military titles, and his eventual full withdrawal from public life placed Beatrice and her sister in an unusual position. Two working professionals with royal titles, but an increasingly compromised family reputation to navigate. Reports in 2022 indicated that then Prince Charles intervened to strip Beatrice and Eugenie of certain security arrangements, a decision said to have frustrated their father, illustrating the layers of institutional politics that shaped their day-to-day lives even outside of official royal business. Despite this backdrop, Beatrice has generally avoided direct public controversy of her own. She has continued to appear at major royal events. She and her sister kept a vigil around their grandmother's coffin as it lay in state at Westminster Hall in September 2022, and she attended the state funeral shortly after. She has remained a low-key but consistent presence at family occasions, weddings, and select public engagements, generally opting for a more private, less publicly scrutinized version of royal life than some of her cousins. What makes Beatrice's story notable isn't scandal. It's the quieter narrative of someone building a functional, independent adult life while remaining tethered to an institution that offers little in the way of a conventional career path or financial safety net. She has managed dyslexia, a highly publicized parental divorce, unrelenting tabloid attention over her fashion choices and relationships, and a father whose personal conduct became one of the most damaging royal scandals in a generation, all while completing university degree, building a career across finance, government, and entertainment, sustaining long-term charitable commitments, and starting her own family. Her trajectory suggests something increasingly common among the royal family's younger generation, an attempt to hold two identities at once, public figure and private professional, without letting either one fully define her. Whether that balance holds as the monarchy itself continues to evolve remains an open question, but Beatrice's history so far suggests a preference for steady, low-drama progress over public reinvention through crisis. Beatrice's push toward professional independence accelerated further in 2025. That August, Companies House filings revealed she had become a director and 45% shareholder of a new firm, Purpose Economy Intelligence Ltd., alongside Luis Alvarado Martinez, a Spanish-born World Economic Forum executive, with her long-serving private secretary Olivia Libby Horsley holding the remaining stake. The company's stated purpose spans business and domestic software development, IT services, and management consultancy, an extension of the tech and policy world she had already entered through her role as Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Affinity and her appearances at Davos alongside her sister. The venture came in the same year Beatrice gave birth to her second daughter, Athena Elizabeth Rose, born several weeks premature in January 2025. Beatrice later wrote candidly about the experience in a piece for Vogue, describing the fear of those early weeks and admitting that even months later, she still lacked a precise explanation for why Athena arrived early. She has since become patron of Born, a charity dedicated to researching the causes of premature birth, turning a frightening personal experience into a sustained public health commitment, a pattern consistent with how she has approached charitable work throughout her adult life. Beatrice's standing within the family also carries some formal institutional weight. As one of the first four adults in the line of succession, she holds the position of Counselor of State, meaning she can formally stand in for the monarch on certain state functions if required. That said, questions about the royal family's finances have periodically touched her life as well. A National Audit Office report referenced in mid-2026 noted that Beatrice has not personally paid rent on royal properties she has occupied, a detail that resurfaced broader public debate about how non-working royals are supported. Her father's diminished public role has continued to shape family life in visible ways too. He and Sarah Ferguson made a rare joint public reappearance at the private christening of Beatrice's daughter in December 2025, their first appearance together since Andrew's loss of his royal titles. This new material fits naturally right before the closing, a different kind of royal story section, and the file I shared earlier has already been updated with it, so you're covered either way you want to use it. Got it. I'll write a fictional royal drama, invented country and characters, same dramatic bones as your reference announcement, family tension, succession stakes, but nobody real. Here's the script. Crown Prince Alexander did not simply issue a statement. He drew a line through the heart of the royal house of Lund, and the entire nation felt the tremor. In one controlled address, delivered with a face carved from restraint, the Crown Prince redefined Queen Consort Isolde's place inside the royal family forever. What sounded, at first, like protocol quickly became something far more personal and far harder to undo. Prince Alexander arrived at Rosmere Palace that morning with the silence of a man who understood there was no gentle way to deliver what had been decided. Rosmere, one of the working royal residences, had witnessed announcements before, but this one carried unusual weight. It concerned the shape of the coming reign, the period when the next monarch's authority would begin to take form. Aides stood back. Senior courtiers waited. Legal advisors reviewed the sealed royal statement, a formal document defining the crown's position going forward. Alexander knew that once the words left the room, they would not return quietly. The prince began with composure, though composure did not mean comfort. He announced that Queen Consort Isolde would hold no future ceremonial authority once he became king, and that she would be excluded from the transition councils, the private planning groups that determine how royal duties and public roles shift from one reign to the next. That declaration was why the room went still. This was not a minor adjustment. It was Alexander closing a door before Isolde could step through it. His hand tightened before the final sentence, because he understood exactly who would feel the impact first. His father's wife, a woman who had spent years earning acceptance within a family that had never fully offered it, now facing a future narrowed by that same family. Isolde received the statement at Aldermere House, and she said nothing when an aide read it aloud. Aldermere had once felt like a refuge from public scrutiny. Now scrutiny had followed her inside. Her expression shifted from disbelief to something colder, a quiet, private humiliation. King Edmund had known the decision was coming. He had seen the confidential internal review, a private palace assessment of influence over ceremony, access, and family decisions, and he had not intervened. That silence became the first fracture in the story that would follow. Alexander was not merely managing ceremony. He was deciding what kind of monarchy he was prepared to inherit. Behind the announcement stood three people locked in a quiet, unspoken triangle. Alexander, carrying the weight of a reign not yet begun. Isolde, fighting not to be erased from an institution she had spent years trying to belong to. And Edmund, caught between loyalty to his wife and the long-term stability of the crown. This was not simply a dispute about ceremony. It was a family wound reopened under the coldest possible light. Alexander understood the stakes before anyone else dared say them aloud. Every ceremonial role, every seat at an event, every name placed near the future throne carried meaning, because a monarchy survives as much on symbolism as on law. He did not see Isolde's position as a minor detail. He saw it as part of the very structure his future reign would inherit. If the wrong signal reached the public now, he believed the next chapter of the monarchy would begin already compromised. Isolde felt the decision differently. She had spent years navigating public judgment and quiet suspicion simply to stand beside Edmund. Now Alexander's words made it feel as though the family had only ever accepted her for the present, never for what came after. She turned to her private secretary after hearing the statement and asked one sharp question. Did he say I was unfit? The question stripped away every formal phrase. It was no longer about protocol. It was about dignity, and she felt hers being taken from her in full view of the court. Edmund sat alone after reading the statement. He did not call his son. He set the paper down carefully and stared ahead, caught between the woman beside him and the son who would one day carry the crown. If he defended Isolde, he risked undermining Alexander. If he defended Alexander, he wounded her. That impossible calculus was why his silence carried so much weight. Princess Helena, Alexander's wife, had sensed the coming storm before the room ever heard the words. Before the formal briefing, she had watched him strip every softening phrase from the draft statement, leaving only cold certainty behind. She understood that his closest advisors had warned him the announcement would look like punishment. He had insisted it was protection, but protection, she knew, could cut just as deeply as punishment. The moment that set everything in motion had occurred weeks earlier, during a private succession rehearsal at Caldbrook Hall, when Isolde challenged a ceremonial placement meant for Helena and demanded a formal voice in shaping Alexander's future court. The room had gone silent. Edmund looked away. Helena said nothing, and in that silence, Alexander understood that his reign could not begin while old conflicts still held the door open. Caldbrook Hall mattered because it was more than a residence. It was a working symbol of the family's history and continuity. The rehearsal had been meant to settle private details before the public ever saw them. Seating order, ceremonial access, household roles, who would stand nearest the future king.